Good afternoon, friends, and welcome back to the online learning platform at Department of Civil Engineering. Rajesh Gopinath, and you're along with me for the course Environmental Studies. So, in the last class, we had a brief introduction to ecosystem ecology. Okay, we also had a brief glimpse of structure and function with respect to ecosystem on a generic note. In simple words, we understood what is biotic component, abiotic component. Okay, we also understood briefly about producers, consumers, decomposers. Also we went further. We were trying to understand the relationship, intra and inter species relationship, positive, negative. Okay, we spoke about mutualism, commensalism, proto-cooperation. We spoke about parasitism, competition. We spoke about resource competition, and uh, non-resource based competition. All right, so basically, on the overall, I was trying to explain to you what is the significance of a structure and a function in connection to any ecosystem on a generic note. In today's presentation, we shall move on a specific note. Okay, we will try to understand first of all what are the different types of ecosystem, and with respect to these ecosystems, we'll try to identify what is the structure and function. And then we will move on to summarizing it, and then I will list the references for your kind perusal. Now, what we need to understand is, whenever you speak about classification of ecosystem, we always think about aquatic ecosystem, terrestrial ecosystem, but we need to move ahead. We also need to understand special ecosystems. And having said all this, when you speak about structure and function, the most important thing that we need to understand is the relationship between your biotic and abiotic component. Okay, now this is a quick recap of the various functions, the production function, the information function, the regulatory function, and habitat function. So obviously all these four functions is visible, okay, in the different type of ecosystems. It varies. We shall try to understand today how it does. Okay, so now when it comes to your classification, I'm sure you people know much better than me. So when we speak about terrestrial, we are looking at mountains, we are looking at deserts, grasslands, forest, and semi-arid areas. When you say aquatic, we are looking at standing water, moving water. Okay, that is running water ecosystem. We are looking at fresh water, we are looking at saline water. Okay, we are looking at small water bodies like ponds and streams. We are looking at large water bodies like ocean and sea. Okay, yes, we also are looking at special ecosystems as well, wherein you have land and water coming close to each other. So now, just to enhance your interest in this course, and also for you to be motivated in understanding the significance of the structure and function, I'll just show you a small video with respect to mountains. Okay, now yes, mountains, when it comes, it's not part of your curriculum. Okay, it's not part of your syllabus as per VTU, but there's no denying, there's no stopping any one of us to learn more than what we can, because as of we are all earthlings, we're all part of it. Okay, so we need to understand the significance of these, because only if you conserve them, then can you protect yourself. Okay, just give me a minute.
The Rocky Mountains are a very beautiful terrain with high peaks and low forests, bighorn sheep that eat primarily shrubs and other small.
So basically, in this video, what we have to see is we need to look at the images and try to connect with what are the different kind of biotic and abiotic species we can see there.
Bushes. Then there's the black bear mountain goats that are very common in the region. Yes. Bighorn sheep also eat this species, small rodent and very common to the area. However, hawks also eat this species.
So, this lady is trying to, explain to you, she's trying to bring the concept of food chain in the practice, okay? She's trying to identify what are the preys and predators. She's trying to tell you, who is a primary consumer, secondary consumer, and tertiary consumer. If you actually observe very carefully, we just are looking at a primary consumer, and in this previous image, okay, we're looking at the secondary consumer, okay, and yes, we also saw omnivores. I recollect seeing owls, okay.
Here, the coyotes and the mountain lions.
So you can see a prey and predator.
It's called mutualism, where it's benefit.
The concept of biomimicry, was inspired from this organism, which you see standing on the edge of a cliff.
Both organisms. One will is where one is benefited.
Now, vulture, okay. Most people look at them as ugly creatures, but we don't realize that they are very vital, very critical to a healthy ecosystem. And unfortunately, human action is killing them.
They get more energy storage. Where?
So, ecosystem is not just about huge trees, huge animals, ferocious animals, but also small insects, decomposers.
Positively affected, and the other is negatively affected. Severely damages the tree. Let's talk about abiotic buses, which are areas where the precipitation is more than the evaporation.
No, so as we rush through this video, basically, the lady is trying to reconnect or establish a connection between what are the different biotic components of a mountain, what are the various abiotic components of a mountain, and she's trying to explain how are they important to each other, how are they connected with each other. Okay, probably as we go further with specific issues, we'll understand it better. Okay, now yes, semi-arid is also one kind of terrestrial ecosystem. Now, grasslands, if you are from Bangalore, you must have heard about Esarghatta grasslands. Okay, now basically grasslands occupy 1/4 of the Earth's geographical area, and they do go by the common names such as prairies, savannas, pampas. Okay, now let's come to the first ecosystem which is there in your curriculum that we need to understand, and that is deserts. Basically, deserts occupy, about 1/5 of the Earth's geographical area, and actually they belong to the megathermal climate. And what basically happens here is not just the hotness, okay, not just the heat, but also these are those areas, generally when you say a classification of deserts, any place which receives less than 25 centimeter rainfall in a year, okay, they are categorized as deserts. Now, whether your desert is a hot desert or a cold desert, they still remain dry throughout the year. Yes, probably if not a mirage, a glimmer of hope would be an oasis. And I'm sure most of you have come across famous deserts such as Sahara, Arabian, the Gobi, the Kalahari, and Thar. Now, this is typically how a desert would look like, and by looking at this, probably you have an idea of what would be the vegetation that you see there. You don't see greenery, okay, you see dry shrubs, you see thorny vegetation, and you're not looking at tiger or lion here, probably you're looking at reptiles, okay, cold-blooded animals. Okay, now when you speak about the structure of a desert ecosystem, yes, we do have the abiotic factors like the sand. All right, we do also have sandstorms, okay, that is wind. Okay, now more or less the abiotic factors are similar across all the ecosystems. Okay, but probably the difference is, if you're talking about precipitation, probably as an abiotic factor you may not find sufficient precipitation in this ecosystem when compared to a rainforest where it probably rains throughout the year. Okay, so now let's try to understand something about its biotic components. So here what you're looking at is a cactus. Okay, this is a cactus, so this is your producer. Now this one who looks like a crow is basically a raven. This is your omnivore, and to be honest, it would be probably at the top of your pyramid. Okay, now this is your secondary consumer, okay, a carnivore. All right, okay, and these would be the most important decomposers. All right, so basically if you're looking at a food chain, or if you're looking at a ecological pyramid, you got the producers again at the bottom, all right, like your cacti, and you know very well that they have undergone adaptation. They're not much of leaves, they're all spiny structures, okay, to ensure they don't lose water by transpiration. Then you have the primary consumers like your hares, that is rabbits, or probably mouse. Okay, then you have the secondary level of consumers, which could be a fox, okay, which could be a snake or a python. Okay, and yes, at the top you will find birds of prey. Okay, yeah, now just give me a moment, let us see, probably I have a video which can help you. So have a glimpse of deserts. So, when you think of deserts, we had an impression that they're vast sand dunes and they don't have any life form. In fact, they have more life form than we ever imagined. So it's not just, hot desert, we have cold deserts also. Remember, this is the abiotic factor that you're looking at. Wind and sand, when they combine, when they join forces, you have sandstorms. And they are actually a very strong force and can take anything which stands in its path. But yes, there are animals, like camel, who have adapted even for this. Interestingly, since they receive very less rainfall throughout the year, have you ever imagined how they would have access to drinking water? Okay, I would request you people to go online and try to search, and you would find several innovative techniques which the flora and fauna have arrived at, they have evolved with, to handle the loss of water, or rather the lack of it. Now, just like forest, even the desert remains active during the night. Now, what we need to understand from this presentation is that, even a desert, which we always thought of barren ecosystem, okay, not eligible for growth of any vegetation. In fact, there are attempts now being made by countries to convert desert into a fertile area. Okay, having said all this, I still believe that, you are tampering with nature. Desert has its own ecosystem. It serves its own kind of animals and other form of species. So when you tend to change its biotic and abiotic characteristics, you're looking at chaos. Okay, now what are the functions of a desert ecosystem? Now, basically speaking, probably when I compare this with any aquatic ecosystem or a forest ecosystem, I might actually run up into very few pages. But having said that, it's not that the deserts do not serve any functions. Actually, deserts do provide shelter to a wide array of species of flora and fauna. Okay, that is, also, if there has been a sufficient rainfall and if the vegetation grows, deserts also actually provide, a grazing ground for the flocks, the herds, the seasonal and the nomadic, organisms. Now, also, do you know that deserts do contain valuable mineral deposits, such as silica, gypsum, and borates? Okay. Now, yes, deserts also serve the function for recreation and tourism. Okay, now let's move on to the second type of terrestrial ecosystem, which is the forest ecosystem. Now, forest, if I can split this word into two words, I can have forest. So the term forest, okay, has been coined by the Britishers because they found forest as a place for taking rest. Okay, probably the Indian terminology remains jungle, but let's go back to its origin. Forest actually comes from a Latin word foris. Okay, and forest generally, or about, let's say, about 9% or 10%, actually declining, but say, about 9% of the earth's geographical area is covered by forest, and we have an array of different types of forest ecosystem. Okay, even India has an array of varied kind of forest ecosystem. Now, across the globe, when you're looking at it, you're looking at the tropical, subtropical, the temperate, the coniferous, the montane, the plantation, the rain forest, the evergreen, and the deciduous. This is how a typical Mediterranean forest would look like. Okay, this is how a tropical rainforest would look like, and this is how a coniferous forest would look like. Okay, now, again, the abiotic factors would remain the same when it comes to the precipitation or the soil type. The characteristics are same, but probably, how they have evolved or adapted would change. For instance, a rainforest would tend to, receive more precipitation than other kind of forest. Okay, now let's move on to something more important. Let's look at the structure of a forest ecosystem in the point of biotic components. Okay, so in a forest ecosystem, basically you have a tiger, which is the apex predator, okay, who will be the top of the food chain. Okay, you also have the primary consumer, which would be let's say a deer. Okay, and then you have the most important one, the decomposers, mushrooms. So if you happen to enter a forest ecosystem, okay, you may not be able to see a tiger. All right, you may be lucky enough to see probably spotted deers or bison or any other herbivore, but what you will definitely not miss are the producers. Okay, what you will definitely not miss are the decomposers. Okay, let's have a look at one more video to enhance your understanding before we move on to the functions. See, in your desert ecosystem, usually it is the jackal, which is the apex predator. But in the forest, it would be the tiger. Now, what I want you to understand is, when you speak about forest, our knowledge must not be restricted just to a tiger, okay, or a deer. There are much more than that who play a vital role because of which the forest exists.
Slither of rain per year.
Now, if you compare the desert ecosystem, okay, and if you look at your rainforest, just look at this excellent depiction of how much of rainfall it receives. So when you talk about the abiotic factor, see, the desert ecosystem has the least amount of precipitation received. Then it's a tundra, okay, but finally, even grasslands do not receive as much as rainfall like your rainforest. So rainforest is important. Rainforest is important because if you have more precipitation, you're talking about rivers. If you've got more precipitation, you're talking about groundwater recharge. If you've got more precipitation, you're talking about water cycle. You're talking about handling climate change. When you remove the rainforest, what are you doing? Okay, you are bringing in climate change, you're bringing in global warming, and you are not able to release the polluted air into a system which can handle it or purify it. Yeah, and probably, with a proper understanding of the course of environmental studies, we may be able to preserve them. Okay, now What are the regulatory functions of a forest ecosystem? The video has already given you a glimpse of this, but probably we need to understand that, whenever you're talking about climate change, okay, when you're talking about climate change, it is being handled, okay? Your water cycle is being regulated by forest. Your air is being cleaned. Your carbon is being sequestered. Your water is being recharged in the ground. Okay, you are getting raw materials for paper and pulp industries. Forest also serves as a source for cattle and other grazing animals. Okay, forest, if they're in place, it can reduce the damages due to floods and tsunami. If in case, Philippines is always underwater, if in case Philippines get flooded again and again, if in case Kerala is getting flooded, it's only because you have done away with the forest once, which acted as a barrier, okay, once which stop the water from rushing through. If those barriers are not there, obviously flooding will take place. Okay, and most importantly, forest helps in large grand photosynthesis, releasing oxygen into the atmosphere, which we need, which all the organisms require. Okay, and if you don't have them, if you do not have the forest, then the regulatory function is out. The regulatory functions disappear, and what do you have? You eventually have situations like this wherein your downtown has got flooded. Okay, now not only that, forest also serves as a habitat for a variety of wildlife. Okay, we always think only about tiger. Okay, whenever you talk about elephants, having entered into conflict with humans, have you ever asked, where did the elephants come? Even if you talk about the recent elephant attack in Munnar, okay, once upon a time a forest, Munnar is still a forest. Now we have converted Munnar into a plantation, into tea plantation, coffee plantation. Okay, now it was their house that we have invaded. So basically, when the elephant is coming out, it was coming into its own territory. So forest also serves as an excellent heaven, as an excellent habitat for wildlife. So when you tend to encroach on that, there will be more man wild animal conflicts. Okay, so moving on. Now forest also can serve, with respect to protection. Now probably we have already seen it, but let's say medicinal herbs, fruits, nuts, flowers, and yes, timber, okay, for your construction and your paper and pulp industries. Now, yes, definitely, I do not deny this. Now, a forest also provides an essential reference function. That is, it contributes to the maintenance of human health by providing you opportunities for your spiritual enrichment, your cognitive development, for your own recreation and aesthetic experience. But what is expected is, when you go to a forest for trek, we do not expect you people to, throw all the garbage there and come back. You are entering somebody's house. You need to respect those inhabitants. Okay. Now, I would definitely not say that hunting is a informatory function. No. Yes, camping, hiking, watching wildlife, plant collecting. So they all serve to be an information function, but hunting is no more part of this. Okay, now that we have understood about terrestrial ecosystems, wherein we actually went into desert ecosystem and forest ecosystem, we now come to the aquatic ecosystem. So when I say aquatic ecosystem, we all know 70% of our earth is covered with water. In this water, 97% is marine. Okay, it is saline. We cannot consume it. So we have only 3% of the water which is existing on our earth as fresh water, which we can drink. Now, in this presentation, I'll be taking you through, glimpses of lake, river, and ocean. Now, if pond is a small standing water body, lake is a large standing water body. And to be honest, though we have different water sources, it is the lake ecosystem which continues to be the potential source of drinking water for many communities. Okay, and when you look at the lake ecosystem, if you're looking at the structure of it, then the stratification, or the different layers, can be based on two criteria. One is the temperature. See, if your upper layer of your lake, okay, it is expected to be very warm because it is in close proximity with solar radiation. It is called eplimnion. Okay, then we have got the thermocline, and as you go deeper into the lake, okay, it will be the colder area, which is called hypolimnion. Now, depending on the distance from the shoreline, depth from the shoreline, okay, now you can again have different layers, that is littoral, limnatic, profundal, and bathyl. Okay, now you should understand one thing: the photosynthetic activity takes place only in the littoral zone, or it can extend up to limnatic zone. Photosynthetic activity is very limited when it comes to your profundal, and photosynthetic activity is nil. It is zero when it comes to benthic zone. So what do you expect? You expect that there will be different kind of biotic components. What you can see at the top will not be seen at the bottom. Okay, at the top you have plants, aquatic plants, okay, phytoplankton, zooplanktons. So you will have consumers, primary consumers. But as you go deeper into the lake, you will find carnivores. Okay, you will find secondary consumers mostly. All right. Okay. Now let's have a glance of a lake. Now generally all the lakes are freshwater, but if you heard of Chilka Lake, it's a salt water ecosystem, and the largest lake is in India itself. It could be a very good exercise for you if you can get back to me at the end of the session and tell me which is the largest lake in India. Okay, I'm not talking about the largest lake in the world. In India, which would be the largest lake? The hint would be northeast. Okay, now moving on from lake, we have river ecosystem. Now if lake was a standing ecosystem, river is a running ecosystem, and anything which comes in the in front of rivers cannot sustain, they get perished. Now moving on to oceans, the oceanic ecosystem, the largest, 97% of all the water you see is the oceanic ecosystem. Again, if you would like to classify, you can classify them based on the thermal stratification. Okay, that is epilimnion, thermocline, hypolimnion, and again based on the depth and the depth from the and the distance from the shoreline. Okay, you have again different zones. Again, the fundamental principle remains same. You will tend to find producers only in the first two layers. Okay, as you go deeper into the ocean, you would not have sunlight. It would be dark, it would be cold, and you would find a different array of consumers. Okay, most of them being very dangerous and carnivorous in nature. Let's look at a video to understand this.
Ocean ecosystems. The ocean is one huge body of, it's hard to believe that underneath it lies many ecosystems.
When we think of ocean, we think of sharks, maybe somebody thinks of dolphins, and probably many think of whales. But there's much more than that when it comes to environmental studies. We need to also think about the coral reefs. We need to also think about all those organisms which perform the function of a decomposer.
All full of amazing creatures. Ocean ecosystems can be deep, shallow, warm, freezing cold, sunny, or completely dark.
Now, if you actually, probably in the next module, we shall be trying to understand one of the functions from ocean, okay? And that is with respect to ocean thermal energy conversion. It is one of the functions of an ocean wherein we tend to tap the difference in the temperature of the water and produce electricity.
One sunlight zone ecosystem is the coral reef ecosystem.
This is the most abundant and most protective part of an ecosystem. Generally, people, when they go for scuba diving, snorkeling, this is the area which they prefer to observe.
Coral reefs are like most sea stars have 5 arms.
Everyone speaks about decomposers, but now you're looking at the decomposers of the ocean bed.
But some have more. If a predator.
When you speak about ocean, we should not restrict our knowledge of biotic components only to the fishes. It's like big fish, bigger fish, biggest fish. No, we also have other life forms such as birds who are also active in this.
Bites off one at a time, the sea star can grow a new one. Many animals spend their whole lives in the sunlight zone, but some animals trap filters down into the twilight zone. There are no herbivores in the twilight zone. Twilight zone animals are either carnivores, scavengers, or decomposers. Many ways to open the shell so it can eat the animal inside. Drill a hole into the shell, and the zone in most parts of the ocean is the midnight zone. The light of the sun doesn't reach this far. Isn't completely dark zone.
Now, this is very important, because why we need to appreciate the biotic components in an ocean ecosystem is how it relates or how it has evolved with the abiotic components. For instance, as the lady was saying in the video, when you come to the midnight zone or when you come to the bottom of the ocean bed, literally there is no sunlight reaching here. Then how would the organism see? Okay, now this is what scientists are studying. Okay, and this is what we are trying to evolve, trying to inculcate into the concept of biomimicry. For instance, the anglerfish, which has a bioluminescent lure which hangs over its head.
Some midnight zone animals, like these jellyfish, make their own light to attract prey. This is called bioluminescence.
So, sometimes curiosity can also kill.
The anglerfish has a bioluminescent lure that hangs over its head. When a curious fish comes to investigate, anglerfish snaps the prey up in its mouth. Danger.
Now, this is where our human interaction comes. Okay, this is where we have started contaminating the oceans. This is where we have started. When I say we, me and you, all of us have started contributing to polluting the ocean ecosystem. And let's be honest, if the oceans are going to be polluted, if the oceans are going to disappear, the entire human civilization would disappear, because oceans control the climate of this earth.
Human pollution has harmed ocean animals' homes, and climate change is making the water too warm for some animals to survive. Information about ocean animals by measuring and weighing them, and by counting how many there are in different parts of the ocean. Lots of people who aren't scientists are working together to protect ocean ecosystems.
Tomorrow, you can be one among these people who can be a sensible earthling, sensible human being who has understood the role of an ocean and would tend to protect it. Okay, let's get back to the presentation. Now, basically, this is how a beautiful an ocean would be. But it all depends on me and you whether we can retain the ocean like this, or otherwise, our knowledge of ocean would be restricted to movies like Finding Nemo. Okay, now this is your sea ecosystem. Now you are looking basically a structure of a typical aquatic ecosystem. Okay, now you have here, I'm going to change these screens, I'm going to change these visuals. Okay, what we need to understand is all these images are going to transform, because you are going to see the structure varying from a lake to a pond to a river to a stream to a sea to an ocean. So as the scale changes, the living organisms also would change. For instance, you're looking at the carnivore, you're looking at a secondary consumer, you're looking at a tertiary consumer, you're looking at a herbivore, you're looking at the producers. Okay, the food chain changes, the pyramid changes, and some of the aquatic ecosystems you may not have bird at the top of it, but if you look at a lake, a bird would be probably at the top of that food chain. Now look at this, you would not expect this to be in a lake. The apex predator would be a shark in a greater body. Okay, now the previous image was for a lake, the producers, but if you look at ocean, this is how your producers would look like. Okay, now this is how your decomposers are in the ocean ecosystem. So all of these are important, all of these are playing a very important role. But what are the different functions of a aquatic ecosystem? Now if you look at your regulatory function, most importantly, it regulates water cycle. Okay, it helps in carbon dioxide sequestration. Please understand, all the carbon dioxide which is being released by the industries, or let us say even by a forest fire, or let us say a volcanic eruption. Okay, now carbon dioxide can go to two places. One is it can go to the forest area, where due to photosynthesis carbon dioxide gets converted to oxygen, or carbon dioxide can go to your ocean, Okay, it goes to your oceans and get converted to carbonic acid. All right, so eventually your exoskeleton, calcium. Now, apart from this, they also serve as the heaven for your fishes and your food products. Okay, so this is about the water cycle, and this is about your climate change. Please remember, if you can disturb the cold currents and warm currents of your ocean ecosystem, then you would have erratic precipitation, erratic climate, which is actually being observed. So what you need to understand is, why should I protect my ocean? It is because climate change, if it has to be controlled, global warming, if it has to be combated, then you need the oceans protected. Now, when it comes to your habitat, it provides a variety, it provides, habitat to a variety of aquatic species such as fishes, and they come of various sizes. Your aquatic ecosystem also is a spawning ground, okay, a reproductory or reproduction habitat to a lot of species such as dolphins. Okay, your ocean ecosystem or your sea ecosystem, just like your forest ecosystem, contributes to in situ conservation. Just like you've got medicinal herbs, all right, here also there is protection of genetic diversity and the evolution. Okay, now, yes, moving on, depending on what kind of ecosystem, you will have different kind of inhabitants. Now, this is an image of Rangantittu, a bird sanctuary, but then obviously it is a water which is the base for its survival, because you find fishes here. Okay, so they tend to breed here, the birds and the fishes both. Okay, now when it comes to your production, we need to understand, as I told you, the biogeochemical cycles that we had discussed in the previous session. Our aquatic ecosystem plays a very huge role in maintaining the balance of nitrogen, phosphorus, carbon, oxygen. Okay, all of these are macronutrients. All of these are required by the green plants, and we in return depend on the green plants for these nutrients. Yes, coming to the human touch, we have tides. So when we have tides, we can tap energy from the tides, that is tidal energy. You have waterfalls, you can tap tidal energy from your waterfalls. Yes, aquatic ecosystem also serves for the maintenance of human health. Maybe probably it's your own inner reflection, your spiritual enrichment, your recreation, your aesthetic experience. Let's say you go for snorkeling or scuba diving, or let's say you're part of a treasure hunt expedition. Okay, so all these are the functions of an aquatic ecosystem. Moving on from terrestrial and aquatic, now let's come towards the end of the presentation. Let's move to something special, a special ecosystem. So what comes under special ecosystem? You're looking at a mangrove, you're looking at an estuary, and you're looking at something scary, the swamplands. Okay, now, why are they important? They are actually very important because this ecosystem will provide you a variety of organisms which cannot be seen anywhere else, because here you have fresh water and salt water mixing. Here you have land and water in close contact. Okay, so you can see tigers here, you can see your marsh crocodiles here. Okay, you can see plants growing above the water, you can see plants growing below the water. Okay, you can see mushrooms. So basically, depending on the type of ecosystem, your components of biotic attributes change. For instance, here you would have a crocodile as the top apex predators, something even above the birds. In fact, if you can make a visit to Rangantittu, you might find, you might be lucky, or to witness such an incident of crocodiles hiding below the water to capture the birds. Okay, now I'll just have a couple of minutes left for the presentation to end. Let's see a small video to enrich your experience.
In addition to its gorgeous beaches, the Caribbean island of Cuba has other less-known features, such as this mangrove swamp. The word mangrove comes from a Guarani word meaning twisted tree. Underwater, mangrove roots look like a twisted mass of vegetation.
So basically, you're looking at a type of a grassland had it existed below the water.
The many roots stabilize the sand and mud.
Now, the beauty of this is, these are all salt-tolerant species. they can tolerate salt content in the water, which and so therefore what we need to understand with respect to the abiotic attribute is, unlike your fresh water where there is no salt content, no sodium chloride, or unlike your marine ecosystem where the critical abiotic factor is the salt presence. Okay, in this ecosystem the important abiotic component is your salinity component mixed with fresh water. Okay, so therefore you will find organisms which cannot probably survive only in an ocean or a lake. These are those diverse organisms which can withstand, they are more tolerant. Okay, you will find the most very diverse organisms in this ecosystem, which cannot probably, which you can't even see in ocean also.
Ocean water and fresh water mix here. The mix is full of nutrients, fish and crustaceans. Plants have adapted to the lack of oxygen and easily reproduce.
You hear that? There is no oxygen availability, but they are still able to reproduce, wherein the roots do not grow down, rather they grow up and take the oxygen from the air.
Turning the swamp's floor into a tangle of vegetation.
If you're lucky, if you can go towards, Kaiga nuclear power plant, you can visit the mangrove.
The area under the woody plants thrive in addition to the mangroves.
So this is what I'm talking about when I say that, they have evolved to take in oxygen from the atmosphere and the roots are not going into the water.
This is a habitat for great quantities of vegetation and many animals as well. A snake slithers along a mangrove limb. Is he looking for some eggs for breakfast? Or for a distracted rodent for an appetizer? These mangroves develop in a very individual fashion.
See, unlike your forest ecosystem, look at the way the fruiting bodies have evolved here. They also serve a function.
Seeds are long and pointed, and when they drop, they have several options. They may float away, germinate, or grow roots to sink into the swamp floor. It looks very peaceful here, but it's not. Many animals live that may emerge from under the water. It's Switia, and this is a boa. And these floating tree trunks with eyes are mangrove crocodiles.
So a variety of organisms. Now, if you go towards the Sundarbans, you have the apex predator being your tiger itself. Okay. Now, during the event of COVID, probably even dolphins were also observed, which means they're returning back to the habitats. Okay. Now, just a glimpse of the special ecosystem for you. Now, what I want you to understand with respect to the function attribute of it is, you're looking at, flooding. Okay, when there was flooding which took place, a couple of decades back, when it had hit Nagapattinam or Velankani, okay, there were a lot of villages which got hit and submerged. But there were a series of villages who were protected. They were protected because they had mangroves, okay, in front of them, and they had not destroyed it. These mangroves actually acted as a barrier or as a cushion to protect the villages from the tsunami. Okay, even now, mangroves are at the risk of being destroyed in places like Kerala. And if it continues, probably, when the next flood arrives, we would find more places sunken. So one of the essential function of your special ecosystem is not that it, hosts a variety of organisms, but also it protects lives. It protects, it prevents flooding, it prevents inundation. Okay. So friends, we have reached the end of the presentation. So today's class, we have a brief glimpse of, the structure and functioning of forest, deserts, oceans, estuaries, lakes, and rivers. And mostly whatever we understood in terms of the function, we can always, classify them into ecological services and economic services. So when I say ecological services, I'm talking about recharging the groundwater. I'm talking about treatment of waste. In fact, I would request you to go through a terminology called as reed bed technology. When you come to the domain of environmental engineering, wastewater is being treated, but what we do not realize is that we are actually copying or mimicking how nature would treat a waste. Okay, we are trying to evolve from that. So your climate moderation, so anything, all these are ecological services. And yes, when it comes to economy, whether it's your generation of power, okay, a provision of drinking water or food or raw materials, or yes, recreation, they are the economic services. So all the four functions that we had discussed, reproductory, recreation, information, okay, habitat, okay, production, they all can again be classified into ecological services and economic services. And from ecosystem to ecosystem, these services, though they are same or similar on a generic note, on a specific note, they are very different. So friends, these are the references that I've gone through in my humble effort to make this presentation. You are always welcome to refer any other material for enhanced knowledge. In the next session, we shall be understanding about biodiversity. Okay, its different types, its significance. What are biodiversity hotspots? What are threats for them? How can you go about conserving them? So my dear friends, I'm done with the presentations for today, wherein you've understood about the various classifications of ecosystem, aquatic, terrestrial, and special, and you have tried to understand briefly what are the structure and functions associated with each of them. I thank you for your patient hearing and kind attention. Thank you. So we are done with the presentation. If you have any queries, we shall gladly take it up.